We ready to do this thing?
We're ready.
So the fire department revenue, is that what we're on?
Yeah.
My first question, Tony, you were just talking before Charlie got here about the volume. Was that revenue now 1.2 million? Was that a good number or is it really more than that?
Now, as you can see, based on what we're estimating, we're estimating more than $100,000 above that by the end of the year. But that 1.228, I feel pretty comfortable that that's where we need to be for right now, because I know it's a number. Like I've always told y'all every time, I don't want to give you a number that I don't know 100% without a year's to data and expect revenue that may not be the case. Although it's great, I feel like we're going to exceed that, and so far we're on track to do that. I don't want to tell you something I don't know I can't do.
So you're comfortable with these numbers?
Yes.
And that would be wonderful to exceed it, but we do want to be conservative on our revenue.
Absolutely.
Okay. And it's the increase in overtime primarily for 40 hour.
That's what that accounts for. That's right. That's the overtime for the paramedics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the amount of the increase is the.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wasn't there some regulation change or something?
We had, because primarily what they do is EMS, the majority of the time, that's the reason when you're talking about the overtime after 40 is that more closely fits the FLSA schedule for having to pay those type of employees. We had an EMT on each one of those trucks as well, that's still being paid on the traditional 106-hour schedule that I'm hoping that we can get some consideration to where we can make them comparable to the paramedic that they're riding with. They're both on that same truck doing the same exact job. I think it ought to be fair if we can look on getting them the overtime at 40 as well, and it wouldn't be that drastic of a fit. So just because they're essentially on the truck doing the same job, and the pay hourly difference is different because the paramedic has more training than an EMT. I do think we need to give them consideration to be on the same pay schedule.
Does that, this number do that? Or is it something you'd like to do in the future?
This number in the overtime does not account for that, just because we haven't approved, we haven't had a discussion yet.
Doesn't cover the EMT.
That's right.
Oh, that's what I was asking.
It does cover the paramedics. It covers the paramedics, but not the EMT.
Okay, but we haven't started the actual EMTs.
We have not. No, we have not. We have for the paramedics because you guys have approved that.
Insurance was probably look at a little bit.
Yeah.
Lisa's hoping that she will have those numbers by first thing in the morning. So I'll do my best to get that updated tomorrow so I can have it to account Friday.
And a positive report too, based on the decision we made with the paramedics. The day after you guys approved that, we received 5, 6 applications for paramedics.
Yes, we've been inundated with applications from medics, and it's totally spread around to other departments. We've gotten those quality applicants.
When he's exactly right. It's been quality applicants. It's been people that we're really glad to have on our frontline ambulance.
Nice. And
Now, the question that I have is, I understand some increase in travel and expense, but education and training looks like it's basically doubled.
Well, in education and training, our budget on that, you got to keep in mind, that covers every bit of continuing education for EMTs, paramedics, firefighter, technical rescue, and everything. Our budget in the past has always been right around $30,000 for that. But over the years, it had got cut down because of the financial constraints the county ran into. We're starting to see negative results because of that. Because we don't have the money to send some of our folks to some of these classes that they need to go to obtain the level of training that they have to have. Some of our newer responders don't have stuff that some of our people who were here years and years ago, and a lot of the stuff is stuff that we're going to have to get them into. Advanced EMS classes, cardiac, trauma, stroke, stuff that costs us money for them to have to go through. Also talking about as well, we have some folks who are interested in going to paramedic school. You know, they've asked us to help them with that, and it's something I think we really want to have to consider.
So for the most part, this is not a matter of new training requirements so much as we haven't been doing what we should have done in the past.
Because money has decreased.
For continued
Absolutely.
training.
That's right. We're not just looking for new fun stuff for people to go to. We're really just
So we should have been going to all along.
Exactly, but because the budget was what it was, we just had to just say, hey, we're going to get to it when we can.
Okay.
Most all of that has to be off-site somewhere too, probably.
It is. We try to host. One thing that I try to do the most is to find people in our organization that we can send to be a trainer for a lot of these things. So I can send that one person to go be a trainer and come back here and we can offer those classes in-house. You know, Keith, for example, he's a trainer when it comes to all our boat operations, our technical boat operations stuff. He's able to instruct that here now, so we don't have to send somebody off somewhere else. That saves us money and all around, lodging and everything that goes along with it.
So, I don't know if Sheriff's Department's still using open school to do training of some kind. Is that still occurring? Does anybody know?
They are using one wing of it for their training.
So my question is, could we be a host site, could we work with Board of Education, be a host site, and at least you wouldn't have travel, you could be local?
There's a ton of different places that we could do that for. Our constraint right now has been the proper facility to do all this stuff.
Well, I mean, there's a precedent with another department.
Sure.
And if we could expand on that and save some money and make that training available at better cost, I think you kill two birds with one stone.
Absolutely.
So, we'll have a discussion, we'll talk to Stacy. Well, no,
No,
Board of
I'm
Education.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had that discussion.
couldn't hurt.
And something else too, talking about having the site. You know, traditionally now, when we have those classes, we're doing it at the UC building we have down there now, because it's the biggest space we have, it's classroom capable. But the facility really is just deteriorating so quickly down there that it's becoming hard to do a lot of things.
Yeah, I think that's worth a conversation.
Now, with the Board of Education, let me make sure I understand, what is it that they have?
So,
Their classroom.
I suspect the reason that they originally did it was there was a clause in that deed that if that property was ever not used for training purposes or educational purposes,
So the
it
sheriff did a lot of
was
training.
a reversion clause. It would go back to the Sumner Methodist group. And so,
So what we're wanting to know is, can we use that facility to help
For
us
training.
our own?
yeah,
What it is, it's that lower wing down there, the new wing.
Yeah, that's the new area.
I think the sheriff's office only uses a classroom or two down there, but there's a good number of classrooms. There's a million things we could use with some of those classrooms in there for, and not encumber any additional costs.
and we're not driving to Tifton or Savannah or wherever it is.
Absolutely. That's
Have it
right.
right here.
Yeah, there's always going to be those meat and potato classes that the state or the federal government offers that we're not going to get. They control those, and sorry, you're not teaching that in Gilmer County, but a lot of our stuff, some of our more advanced and specialized classes, we can do that.
And that facility is suitable, isn't it?
Absolutely it is.
So assuming they're okay with this, then I can get with you and you can decide what to schedule it for
Yes.
this facility.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What facility? Sorry.
Oakland
School.
Oakland School.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Because that was essentially sitting there dormant that we can make use of, you know?
And save travel expense to boot.
Right.
Let me, on that Oakland, how many students do they put in those portable classrooms?
I don't know.
20, 30?
Usually about 20.
We-
20, I expect about 20. Those, we talked about those being available, didn't we?
Well, Danny
One
wants
of
me
them
to
in
look
particular
at
for
it.
the animals.
But what I'm thinking, are they possibly available to help fill in wherever the EOC is being used? Would it be equivalent space?
I would say.
First question is, would it be adequate?
Well, here's,
That's really the
here's
question.
what we really have to look at, practicality. Whenever the EOC is activated, 98% of the time it's because of a weather event. Tornado
Right.
coming or has come, we have a hurricane coming like a snowstorm.
Floods and all that stuff, yeah.
I feel that it's really important that we have a little permanent structure that's not mobile, that we don't have to worry about being susceptible to wind and elements.
I didn't mean to replace it. I'm saying, can we add classroom space on that property
You know?
for some things we might need? Or do we
The
need,
property
rather
where the
than go
EOC is
over
currently,
site-wise, physically?
You probably wouldn't.
there's not a whole
The
lot of.
floodplain probably wouldn't. It'd cost you a fortune to put a temporary structure on it. I would imagine, because that's in the floodplain.
Understand, okay, okay.
Would be my guess. I don't know that.
I was just thinking in terms of, they
Absolutely.
got 2 of those at least, maybe 3. Okay, but the lower part of the main building is probably the idea for that, okay. Yeah, talk to Shannon.
On the very last item, other contributions, what is that typically?
That may be the forestry line.
That's the forestry.
And what that is state law was passed 4 or 5 years ago that basically allowed the forestry commission to up their per acreage fee to each county
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
in order to pay them, yeah, for the Georgia Forestry Commission.
Okay, all right. Personally, I don't have any other questions on it. So whatever y'all have.
Not on the M&O side.
Okay.
Was the EMTs the only, you got a little bit different number there, not much on Richard's salary.
That's just based on, there's a lot of times for what the call volume that we have and for having to call folks in for running the ambulances to handle a lot of times. We try to absorb that in the straight time, but in overtime, and that's where that's reflected at. And that's why I've asked for that difference.
Not an additional head count or.
No, I'm not well.
Yeah. Capital, is that where we're at?
Capital. But we have a road department situation.
Yeah, I think I was thinking the same thing, Charlie.
And let me speak a little bit to the.
You might want to prioritize these because.
And I absolutely understand, but something I think that's important for me explaining to you guys is if you look at the capital budget for the fire department, there's a good bit of stuff there. The reason we're starting to run into this is, of course, probably everybody else in the county that had everything from the GO bond is the same thing. We done everything at once when we got the GO bond. So now we're starting to run into the period.
The clock started ticking all at once.
They started ticking all at once to where now all this stuff is starting to be, now our newest fire engine, other than engine 1 that we bought a couple of years ago, is 10 years old. Our newest rescue truck is 10 years old.
I thought we just bought a rescue truck.
Well,
A couple years ago.
I guess our other rescue trucks, we did buy that one, so they come with engine 1. But the ones outlined in the county, I guess what I'm trying to say, that was a Type 6 engine for wildland purposes.
Yeah.
Which we've got another one of those coming this year, because we've been trying to get one of each one of those types of trucks at least to try and rotate them out. Well, we've still got those 6 that we got at one time, but the newest one is 10 years old. But where we're really hurting at is in the tanker pumper area. That's Class A pumper. That's the truck that we have to have at each fire station for it to be recognized as a fire station. The newest one of those that we have bought was in 2008. And they're starting to show their wear because of especially the places that we take them and the type of environment those trucks live in whenever they're functioning. They still work, but we're seeing issues. And we're talking about something that on the end of that line, you have somebody inside of a 1,500-degree environment, and that truck is their lifeline. If anything goes wrong and the water goes out, they're in a bad way at that point.
if you would prioritize this list for me for most important things.
Obviously, number one to me is the ambulance.
More
Because,
so than tanker truck?
yeah, because we're still running the wheels off of the ambulances. And if we don't,
I asked him about his newest one, which went online last September,
yeah, to
pushing
get,
100,000 miles. Right?
we are literally, that's what I'm saying, we
The
are,
newest one.
and this is not just
Well, you're not
from,
talking about the one we took delivery of this year, right?
no, that one's still coming. That's the refurb.
So we've got
we're
that
doing this
one
year.
coming.
That one is coming, so that's gonna help.
But one year old.
Yeah.
100,000.
Wow. But that's where that $1 million didn't generate.
Of
Yes,
course.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the thing,
That's why he put it number one by that ambulance.
is because I see the wear and
Well, I was
tear
just
on those.
surprised because he was, I thought the tanker truck would come in number one.
Well,
Go ahead.
and I have to kind of look at it in different realms. You know, we're all, everything we do is public safety. We've got our EMS run with things that we do, and we have the fire rescue run with things that we do. But above all of it, we have to keep an ambulance coming because of how many miles we put on the bus.
Here's part of the problem on that, because I remember back years ago, we started, we were getting $80,000 ambulances, 90, 100, 110. We're now up to 210. Is that realistic, or why do they happen? Is it, are we getting full chassis, full
Well, here's
bodies, or how did we get by earlier with less?
Well, here's what happened. We had this, let's see, in 2016, we had 2 chassis that were refurbable. All right, so we could send that to be refurbed for $75,000, $80,000. The one that we're waiting to come back right now, same type of thing. It was a refurbable piece of equipment. Well, we've refurbed everything that is refurbable. So now,
we got to go on.
now we're to the point to where to keep one in the schedule to where we have a good one in the fleet. I don't have another one that I can refurb.
So this is
I thought we
not a
had one more.
refurb.
No.
Well, that's the one that we got, we're waiting on
That's
right
it.
now. Yeah, we had, me and you looked at those, the 2 Chevrolet chassis that we have down there. Those boxes are not refurbable. Those are, when we bought those things, we basically got those because it was all that they had, and we were in desperation for ambulances. And we knew when we bought them, it was a one-time usage. And I hate that, but
Let me ask you this on the ambulances. A lot of what we're doing now is the transports.
and that's what I was explaining earlier, while we do have a good bit of volume out of the hospital, just our 911 calls alone, and I don't, you know, like I was telling them, it just seems like you go into town now, and it used to be, well, on Friday evening it was busy, or Saturday morning it was busy. Now it's busy all the time if you drive anywhere in the county. I don't know if it's because more people are moving in, I don't know what the specific demographic is that's causing it, but our 911 call volume is to the point anymore to where we're having to put some of the transfers on hold just because 911 is taking that precedence.
I think that answers my question, because what we're saying then is we could not take a lesser ambulance and just dedicate that to
You know, if,
transfers. It still has to do double duty as a
absolutely.
primary
And
ambulance.
we have tried that in the past, where we have bought 2-wheel drive ambulance, a smaller ambulance with less compartmentation. And what happened whenever we got down to a time when we were really slammed with emergency calls and we were having to use everything that we had, well, those 2 were essentially useless except for transfers because it wasn't 4-wheel drive, we couldn't get anywhere, didn't have any compartmentation or space on the inside of it. So we've tried to keep everything to the same level of usability so we don't have just a piece of equipment sitting there of no use.
Okay. So what's your second most important?
As far as my second, I'm gonna have to go with the 2,000-gallon tanker pumper.
So you keep one of those at all the man stations, is that what, or every station?
Every station.
Every station.
And the reason we do a 2,000-gallon tanker pumper, yeah, they make 500-gallon trucks or 1,000-gallon trucks. So here's what we have to keep in mind. Gilmer County, outside of the city area, doesn't have hydrants.
Right.
So we have to have that higher volume capacity tanker in order to provide that fire flow.
The ISO ratings.
For ISO ratings, just to have enough water to put out the house fire. Because when you're having to haul water, I'll give you an example. Say we have a house on fire in Julian Citizen subdivision up in Cherry Log. Our closest hydrant in Gilmer County is 5 north right there at Mountain Academy Daycare. Unless we can find a pond or somewhere to suction out of. So we have to have enough capacity when we get there to get it done without having to make that big trek back and forth because
That's
the house
another,
department.
that's a discussion eventually we're gonna have to have with the water and sewer folks, but that's a different, but I hear you.
And it's just unfortunate, we have had to build our firefighting corps to that mentality.
Well, I mean, just thinking through that, we're building a trailer fire station, could we not build a large tank like you got at Fire Station 1 to have a reservoir of water on the north end of the county?
Well, you're close out there at White Path, aren't you?
We can, White Path does have a tank there. The only thing about that, whenever they build it, I won't get into a lot of stuff that we tried to fuss and argue with when we were building all that stuff. That well there is not sufficient to keep that tank that's there full. We've had nothing but issues and built sludge into that tank. But, you know, if we had the property up there at the Cherry Lake Fire Station, absolutely we could do that. But as we all know, that space is pretty tight as it is now.
Well, that's an example.
Yes.
But you could put reservoirs of water out.
Absolutely, you
To
can.
help you.
How big are those tanks we got around it?
They're 12,000 gallon capacity. So 12,000 gallon capacity in an area, I mean, that's huge. I mean, you can refill a few trucks off of that. And that's what, once you've got over 12,000 gallons on any fire, you're basically in just keeping everything else under control at that point.
Right.
So yes, it is an option. You know, as far as, that's on apparatus.
Let me stick with the tanker and pumper. What I hear you saying is that we probably need to build a cycle of refurbishing those recycling them every what? That last 10 years?
The tanker pumpers, ideally, on a frontline fire station, that you have somebody that functions out of every day, 10 years is a good lifespan. And then ideally what you do is you take that one and you step it down to like a volunteer station that doesn't have an everyday response capability. And it can stay there for a few more years just because it's not that frontier piece of equipment. And that's the way we've done everything so far. Like the last thing that you guys bought for us a couple of years ago. Yeah, we put it at a frontline station and we.
When did we get the last tanker pumper? Do you know?
2008.
That was the one. I wrote 2008.
We actually got 3 in
I
2008.
didn't know if that was the oldest or the newest.
Right. No,
So
we got three. We got 3 in 2008 and we got 4 in 2007.
Okay.
Did those come from GO1 money?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I think.
Except for one of the 2007s, that actually came out of the general fund budget.
So what's number 3?
You know, turnout gear and air pack replacement, both. This last year, we haven't got any turnout gear this last year. We had gear that people were using that frankly has holes in it, and this is what they're going in and fighting fire in. This is the stuff that they're wearing. I mean, as far as a hazard priority, I mean, it should really be up there at number 1, but it's hard for me to. As far as loose equipment, that's absolutely number 1, is the turnout gear. That and the air packs. This is all stuff that has gone on and gone on and gone on because we haven't had the money. I'm probably going to have to say number 3 for the turnout gear, just because I feel like that amount of money is probably going to be more feasible. The air pack replacement, that's the air bottles that you had people carry on their back. Those that were, most of them that we are using now are from the late 90s. They've been falling apart for years, but we've just been trying to keep them patched together because they're so expensive. Each one of those units costs about $7,000. But that is the air tank the firefighter wears into the burn structure that keeps them out of the smoke and gas.
Well, instead of getting 30, can we get 5 this year? And, you know,
Absolutely, and just keep in mind, whenever I do this, I try to give you guys a complete snapshot of what our true need is. And because I don't feel like it would be fair for me to not tell you what the whole need is. I mean, absolutely, you know, if we could get 5 of them, that's better than what we've got now.
So about how long does a turnout gear last?
Turnout gear, it should be replaced every 10 years. We've got some out there that's probably 15 years or better old. that we still have in service.
And same with the air pack.
Air packs, we've got air packs that are better than 20 years old.
All right, so number 5?
Number 5, I would put as the, I would have to put it as probably the replacement rescue truck. And obviously number 6 would be the utility pickup trucks for folks that have to go out, like, training, to do inspections, for our training person to go out and do the training exercises, for our shift folks to haul hose back and forth to the fire scene, for us to go out and do hydrant checks, for all the things we have to do just for general use, going back and forth to the different classes that they have to go to, and our fleet's getting pretty old on that too, except for 1 or 2 of them.
When you say replacement on the rescue truck, you're really scrapping the old one, or are you gonna be able to read?
We probably have, we have one right now that needs to be scrapped. It's a 1988 model. Something else that I didn't put on here, I spoke to Charlie about it. The reason I didn't put it on here is because I don't have any solid data yet. It's very important for you guys to understand, is our ladder truck. Just to give you a little history, our ladder truck, we bought that thing for $46,000 in 2004 from Gwinnett County. That's surplus property. When we done that, we sent it to Sutphen out of Cincinnati, Ohio, the original manufacturer, and had a refurb done on it for the cost of $150,000, which East LJ paid that to us over a 5-year period, Sandy. All right, well, they done that. This truck is a 1986 model. It is now out of service, and I have not been able to get pricing on repairing it yet because Sutphen doesn't even make the parts for it anymore. So they're pricing what it's going to cost them to have to manufacture parts for that truck. So I don't even have a ballpark number yet.
What did LJ just recently add? What was that?
They just have an engine.
It's an engine, it's not a ladder truck.
And they do have, but here's the thing about LJ, they do have a ladder truck.
Yeah.
And it's a good ladder truck, but it's what's known as a stick. On a stick, it has a remote control nozzle on it, where they can, extinguish fire from above, like if Walmart or something was on fire.
You don't have a bucket on it?
It doesn't have a bucket. Ours has what's called a bucket or platform.
Yeah.
Where does that come in handy? For example, Comfort Inn over here, if we have a fire up there, that's what you rescue people out of the window from.
Right.
Yes, you can do that with a stick, but it is extremely high hazard and liability to try and pull children and people who maybe, have bad health or be handicapped on that stick and have to climb in
They
there.
have no assistance whatsoever.
Absolutely. And the bucket, they stand right off in the bucket when we bring them down.
And you got a hand on it.
Absolutely. And the unfortunate part about that type of truck is the cheapest demo I found on those is about $900,000. And that is a demo. And I mean, it's astronomical. But I just want y'all to know the factors and what it is and the history of it.
So I'm sure you're watching for deals like the Gwinnett County truck.
Absolutely.
Do you ever see those?
There, in talking to a couple of the manufacturers, some of those folks, they have trade-ins sometimes. If we can find a trade-in that's a late 90s, early 2000s model, that somebody's traded in for some of these bigger jurisdictions, and get that for that cheaper price, but pay to have it refurbed like we did with ours, we're still going to be a quarter of the cost in from what we're going to be buying new. Is that the biggest and best thing? No, but we're not looking for the biggest and best, we're looking for what'll work for us. And I really wish I could give you guys solid numbers, but I just don't have them right now because it's going to take me some time. And I don't know what to
Just
guess.
put it back in service.
Just put it back in service if they can even make the parts. And if you want to talk about a piece of equipment, that is the most high liability piece of equipment we have because you're essentially, that's a 110-foot ladder. You're 110 foot up in the air, full of water, and all that, everything else that's going on, everything's got to be right. There's no margin for error. So,
We thought these numbers were good.
I absolutely get it. And there again, I want you all to see, we'll do it this year, but for us to have a map, or a road map, to know what the things are that's facing us right now and over the next couple of years. And that's why I try to give y'all everything here to see as a whole.
And just for some perspective too, I need to let y'all know that what we're looking at here with the ladder truck and the other items exceeds the total amount of capital money that we have for the entire county every year.
We understand.
So that's,
Absolutely understand.
But we have that with road department too.
we did, but we could pare that down to a more reasonable. With them, we could say you get first X number of items. Here, they're all sort of critical.
In looking at the request over the last couple of years, this 2,000 gallon tanker here has been something that we put in a couple of times just because, I've seen it on the horizon and I've just been trying to make you guys aware, just so you know, this is an issue, this is coming. That way we don't run into the, why didn't you tell me? Well, I just want to make y'all sure y'all are informed.
So this is totally out of service now, or just
Which one?
the tanker?
Now this would be
The ladder truck's out of service.
the
I
ladder
know that
service.
is out of service, I'm sorry, but I'm asking about the tanker. Is it completely out of service, or?
If we continue to run the front lines like we have right now, without some type of replacement, they will be out of service more than they're in service. A number of them. Obviously, if we had a new one, it would go to the station with the highest call volume, so we could rotate that one down.
You're not having to add any new equipment or I use staffing or putting stuff into cherry log. Where's that coming from? All the old
It's
out of
gonna
cherry
be
log?
well, actually, the old truck that was in cherry log did not pass pump test this last year. It's passed every year, but that truck is a 1976 model. It didn't pass pump test this last year. So now what we're having to do is we're gonna have to try and pull one from somewhere else to put it there because that one didn't pass pump test. That's why we're asking for this, because I could take one of those frontline tier tankers now, move it to cherry log station and put this truck where that frontline tier tanker is now, because now we're a truck short.
That was the same year our swimming pool was built.
That's a scary thought.
Just putting it in
I
perspective.
know, sir.
It's
I know,
also the
Travis.
same year I graduated from high school.
That's even scary.
I'm an old man,
What year was it?
76.
70, what, 76?
You know what you said?
1976. We've still got a 1974 model American LaFrance that's in service as a primary engine. We just had, we had another one that's actually went out, one of them that we sold. It was a 1984 model that just went out, just one more short, but we had a second tier truck. I mean, we're talking about trucks that's older than me. We just tried to make those things last as very
Throw
long
them in the
as
bucket.
possible.
See what falls out.
We're just gonna pull them out of hat until the money goes.
Well, priority helps. I mean, we're gonna have to,
Should we play
we gotta have some reason to.
We've had to start.
Okay.
You know, if we took every dime that was in this capital budget and played every possible combination of the Powerball, we could maybe win.
Ooh,
halfway to the
that's not gonna sell. That won't hunt. I know what you're saying.
There's been one recall here already.
You don't wanna do that to our lid.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I don't really have any other questions.
I for one appreciate the frank assessment
Yeah.
and.
I mean, we gotta have that, yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
It's not necessarily what we wanna hear, but we gotta hear it.
I just don't want to ever hear y'all say, well, we didn't know, because I want to have that conversation with y'all and tell y'all, this is what the issues are. I try to communicate very closely with Charlie with everything that I do, but, during this point in time, when we're talking about budget and things that are going to be big ticket items, I think that y'all all need to see and hear these things.
And we'd be lying if we said we could cover all of them. That's
Well,
not gonna
and
happen.
we
You
always
know
have
that too,
feasible.
yeah, you know
Yeah.
where we're coming from ourselves, so we're okay.
In the past, you've picked up some apparatus from airports or any of that, I mean, you still keep your eye on those?
We just got a storage bin, that we gotta go pick up down at one of the military bases that we're gonna use to store some of our parts and tires and stuff in for our apparatus. We're still looking for that free stuff that's on military bases and things like that. It's just, it's pretty thin sometimes.
Other people have discovered that resource too, probably.
Yes, they have.
The only one didn't, they're looking.
On that state website where, I think where you got the utilities.
Yes.
Have you looked on there for, to see what might be available for any of this stuff here?
We have looked on some of the fire trucks, but most everything that I'm seeing, a lot of times the type of pump that they have and your model of service, we wouldn't even get ISO credit for. ISO is give us credit for some of the older trucks that we have because we've already had them in the fleet and they've been there. But once that truck is out, if we replace it.
Can't grandfather them forever.
Exactly, absolutely. But yes, we do scroll through that. Keith is very good with the DOAS site and the federal excess property, and he can navigate that very well.
I really wish we hadn't let Keith know about all this, because he's gonna wonder what he's got himself into.
I came from a government agency for 25 years.
Oh,
It's not a surprise.
This is not new news to you.
This is not it, no sir.
Okay, good. Well, I don't, I wish I had more questions, but I don't.
No, I'm good.
We want to discuss the EMA
EMA,
stuff.
got anything on
Yeah,
that?
let's do that.
I don't think you got any changes in the M&O side, do you, really?
There's a little bit there again on education and training for the same reasons, for the same things. And as far as on the emergency management side, those are things that are placed on us by the federal and state government as demands you do, or we don't even have an option. And we just don't have enough budget there to cover doing that. And it primarily affects myself and Keith and Amanda, who is our administrative person that works under that division. Let's see.
I don't have any questions on that part of it. I don't like the next page.
Me either.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Tell me about the mobile command unit. What are we looking at?
What the mobile command unit is basically when we get out here to these scenes, it's out in the middle of nowhere in the county. That's what gives us our radio capability. That's what basically is the hub that everything functions out of. Our radio communications, internet communications, our link to Gilmer to communicate back and forth to the state. Our entire command process happens out of that now. We're functioning out of a old, small 5 by 12 foot trailer that you don't even have room to turn around in. We can't put radio equipment or anything in there to meet our needs. We're having to send people back to relay radio stuff down the road. I mean, it's one of those things we just may do with for a long time, but it's even to the point where it's very difficult.
Is that a new or used price?
You can't usually find those things used. Whenever that's an item that a local government will keep forever, and whenever it's time for it to go, it's time for it to go.
And does that include equipment in it?
That would be to do everything we need to do inside of it. Yep.
Is it on the truck? I mean, is
It's a
that-
straight truck. It's like right now, that's another issue. Everything that we have is in a trailer.
Remember that motor home I was looking at one time, Travis? That's what I did.
Yeah.
But this is a straight truck. It looks kind of like the front of an old red truck. It's a newer model, but it's just a straight truck. You get in and drive. You know, a lot of the issue we have now, we have to find this vehicle with a hitch, or find this vehicle with a hitch, so we can go pick it up and drag it somewhere, and it's.
The bigger
it's
counties run a 18-wheeler to do that, don't they?
a lot of bigger counties do, yes. But their units are big, huge, immaculate.
You couldn't get them in the places you need to go.
No, not where we do. We're in the sticks.
We couldn't pay for it, and you couldn't use it, I agree.
That's exactly right. But as far as prioritizing on this one here, to me, it's extremely easy. Emergency Operations Center, I mean, about it a lot over and over, but it's getting pretty rough, to say the least.
We don't have an answer to that. What is this, what do you think this 600,000 buys you? What does that really get you?
What that gets us is a big enough facility. We don't, that's just the building. We have property that is suitable.
Take the entire building.
Equipment and stuff.
This gets us the construction of a facility of the appropriate size,
Cheaper.
to give us our EOC and the one space of bay storage where we have vehicles there as well. We've got the property out off of White Path Road behind White Path Fire Station. There's a huge area out there that would be more than adequate and sufficient for this facility.
We may want to do this. Yes. Yeah, but first I want to see what's number 2.
Door number 2?
Yeah.
I would like to say the mobile command, and obviously 3 is the pickup, just because the only vehicle we have now that's in emergency management is a state vehicle, and it's creeping up on age. The county doesn't even, it's not a county vehicle.
Now, let me ask you, if we can make arrangements for the Oakland school, what do you think it would take to make a proper emergency operations center out there? And would it be located in the area that would be suitable for that?
Yeah, here's, let me put a little finer point on it. Could you operate in that new wing in the bottom?
Yes, I think so. You know, there's a lot of, if we look at an emergency, a disaster activation at EOC, obviously all the stakeholders in the county come to that one position. Which it being closer to town is ideal for your city entities, and for, you know, any utility partners, state partners that we have come there. But, in my opinion, I understand that convenience of being here close to town, but depending on what the issue is.
That's a negative, actually.
Well, it absolutely can be a negative, because if we look at LJ, you know, not to mention the flood threat alone that we have in most of the downtown area if the right rainstorm comes through. Traffic, accessibility and security in the event of a disaster becomes very difficult, because your control and choke points to keep people out of a facility like this becomes difficult because you're in a more populated area. There is some value, in my opinion, being in a more remote portion of the county.
And that lower section is earth sheltered on the lower level
It is.
in the right direction.
It absolutely is. It's built ideal
The
for.
reason I ask if you could operate only in the lower, it's got its own septic system and everything on site.
Right, because I remember when I went out there and reviewed it and looked at it.
Yeah, right. And the upper involves property that does not belong to, it's a private property owner, and there's monitoring fees and so forth and so on that we would like to avoid.
Right.
And if we're able to use the upper for storage or something, avoid that and just utilize that lower
So
section, if that would work.
What's the negative out farther?
During a storm, making sure that the roadways are accessible, which the good thing about that is Highway 52 is a primary state route that comes through. That is a positive, but as far as negative, it's just a lot of times convenience.
How far is it, 10?
I think it's in the 10,000 block. As far as the building as well, I do know that there was some concern on the water that supplies that building. But we'd actually look at it with the Red Cross at one, the Department of Community Health, because we want to look at that as maybe as an emergency shelter location. And the Department of Health wouldn't certify the well. So maybe if there's a process to certify the well out there, you know, we could do that.
Yeah.
That's good. Good. Have a certified well.
It's on a,
To be a public water source.
it was basically grandfathered with the
That's
schools.
good public water.
Well, but when it was
So, golf course
functioning,
would
it
be-
was all still grandfathered. Whenever it ceased to function, and you want to use it for something different, they basically told us you don't have to restart.
When
So
the
they were
building,
grandfathered.
the building's
That's the way it
20
was
plus years
explained to
old
me.
already. that new building's 20+ years old already. So there probably wasn't many inspections.
But when you say depending on the issue, right now the issue is $600,000.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. If that were used for that, is there any restriction on multiple use or other use? Whether it be training or the sheriff or other uses? Would we have a conflict, or could we use it for more than just an EOC?
I think as long as the portion that we're going to use for emergency management and EOC, we had some way to secure that separately. You know, there's actually absolutely no problem with it in a joint use building, but we just have to make sure that it's not open access to anybody that comes in.
It's kind of like the discussion on the library we have.
Exactly, yes.
Control or security.
But, I mean, it absolutely is a feasible facility that, you know, if we looked at it, I mean, it's absolutely something I think we can make work and work very well.
Until we figure something else out.
You know, and
Would we have to have an agreement with the cities before we could do that?
we don't, because essentially they don't contribute any monetarily to the emergency management anyway, so it's all ours.
What do you think would be the cost to whatever conversions you would need out there and move anything out?
If I just had to say off the top of my head,
Roughly.
20-ish $thousand.
Do you think that would give you the conversion on site you need plus the move?
Without me looking at it, I think it would probably come close.
Could we use the old portion, old building for the storage and the emergency supplies, beds and all that?
That's what I was thinking of for the old section would be for storage.
Yes, yeah, there's a ton of.
We just have to secure it if that's what we're going
Well, the good thing too about the old section, I know the sheriff's office uses it for a lot of like their active shooter drills, where they go out there and actually do sim rounds and things like that, so that's still perfect for that use, and you can actually close that off from the rest of the building. So I think there's absolutely some value in going to look at it, looking at that and trying to make it work.
Well, we looked at it before and it seemed okay.
Yes,
For whatever reason, we
exactly.
went that route.
The only other
I
option,
know there's some reasons, but that's okay.
the only other
The
option,
water you mentioned is the big one.
other than, you know, a new construct, you know, we've talked to Piedmont over here on a facility off of Industrial Boulevard. The entire top floor of that is already constructed, office ready. They have there's a huge conference room area that's the exact size for what we would need for an EOC type area.
to. I'm sorry, which building was it?
The Piedmont Physicians Building over here off of Industrial.
Crossing the post office.
And then talking to that, it's an ideal facility. It's right here in the middle of town, right here in Noble County. Of course, it's a lease option. And
More money.
for the space that we'd be looking at, as far as that lease option, but including power, phone, repairs, and everything, we'll be looking close to about $28,000–$30,000 a year. Which the EOC that we're in now, if we look at what we're spending in repairs and maintenance, plus power bill and everything else, we wouldn't be that far off from what we're spending right now, because that building requires attention monthly.
And that would work for y'all?
I
It
think
would
you got,
absolutely work.
I think you got a parking problem there in those spaces, don't you? If they're gonna stay active in there,
If they were going to stay active, but if we're activated up there, chances are they're probably not going to be working, but also you have the entire parking area out there to the side of the conference center area as well.
that's helpful, that's true.
Can you get us firm figures and
Um,
details?
Basically, they have quoted us at $17 a square foot for what we're looking at. And there again, that includes power bill, water, and all repairs. That's everything.
28,000 a year.
Probably by the time we had all the space, I would say no more than 32,000 a year.
To me, that sounds so much better than $600,000.
Well, it does.
It's even better than what it would take out of it.
It does, and the thing of it is we don't have to upkeep the building. That upkeep is the responsibility of the ownership, which Piedmont doesn't own it, they're a subleaser of it.
And problems down the road though, if we're
Also,
leasing from
Who
some.
owns that?
Some company out of New England, I'm not certain who it
They
is.
bought them through the bank foreclosure.
I mean, it's,
I would make a suggestion. I agree with some of the benefits there. This is heresy to say this, but that would be a perfect building to own or to lease, to complete all, what, 3 floors?
there's a ton of open space in that building.
And I think that would be a more useful for a lot of
Without
things.
naming no money now.
Which building are you talking about?
No,
Across from the post office on the.
Oh, I know that one, okay, so you're talking about that road in Oakland.
I don't like the idea of putting 2 different tenants in here. Myself, I would like to occupy all of it or none of it. I have a problem with that.
The good part about it is, the way it's set up, is you walk into one common lobby, all right, on the first floor,
Yeah.
all right, which goes to what they basically have going right now. Each floor, essentially, its own set,
Their own separate,
yes,
I know.
it's very separate. And the building is in good shape, but there again, for them to absorb the power bill, phone bill, well, power bill, the water, and all repair costs on that, you're saving a lot in some
It's
utilities.
a lot better than fixing up part of the road side, I agree with that. I wouldn't put any money into that place.
Yeah. What's the chance of, 3 years from now, though, some leaseholder, instead of the subcontractor says, you know what, we're selling this building or whatever, get out.
I really think that would be just as good as our lease agreement is from the beginning, but maybe that David can negotiate something with them that's a little bit more ironclad for us for a more guaranteed period of time.
But we'd be negotiating with the sublease.
I would put this on as a second alternative to the Oakland.
That's what it
I would make Oakland the first choice and then that the second choice.
You can't land a helicopter there.
Landing a helicopter at the EOC, I mean, there is some benefit to that, but it is absolutely not essential.
Okay.
Oakland,
you obviously could.
Yeah, absolutely, you got plenty of room there. Like I say, there's a lot of pros and benefit to Oakland. But I just want to offer this to you guys as something that we went and looked at, and seen as an alternative option, so we've got some things to look at.
But now, whether we're talking about Oakland or Piedmont, I don't see this being capital money. So we're talking even other money.
And I'll get with Diane to find.
That's another thought, I don't know.
But I'd rather talk $28,000, $30,000
Yeah,
M&O than $600,000
capital.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
And talking about, and this is just an option, I do know there, I hate anything associated with debt, but municipal leasing will do long-term leases on facilities like an emergency operations center, so it's not all that you at once.
If we're gonna go with Piedmont building in particular, we need to lease another 3 offices worth as a separate entity and move the UGA folks over there as well. So
Oh, yeah, we
let's
gotta
get rid of
consider
that building.
Yeah, we gotta, I agree with
Because
the chart.
we move
I
the
agree with
POC out, but we still have to maintain the building because we got the UGA folks there.
Let me ask you one other
Makes more
question.
sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with you, Charlie. I don't know if I should ask this or not.
Never starts.
There's a lot of space in the old hospital building. Consider that at all?
We have it. There is a lot of space, but there's not any big, real open space in there. There's a lot of compartmentalized rooms, a lot of long hallway corridors.
You'd have to tear out some walls.
It would, I think, if that was even something that would be entertaining, it would be a pretty major construction.
Site-wise, location-wise, it'd be no different than what we got.
It is
probably.
okay until a flood comes about.
Yeah, yeah.
There are certain flood
Highway
scenarios.
5 closes, you
Yes,
get problem.
5 is out.
I agree.
But I would
In a
suggest,
real world, ideal situation, well, that's one box and one. In an ideal situation, if you were gonna build this, where would it be?
White Path Fire Station, we own all that property back there behind it, it's already graded flat. We've already got power on the site, we've already got water on the site, you're close to 515.
Yeah.
It's an ideal spot.
Could this be done in phases, just get a shell building and kind of sort of operate?
Absolutely, you can do that.
that is a fantastic location.
Well, and the thing about that is, we want to talk about, it's out of downtown,
But
but
it's
if we want to talk about
515.
it, the city limits are within sight down the hill.
Yeah.
So we're not completely just out in the middle of nowhere as well.
Let me ask you along that same question, line. Oakland would be closer to Clear Creek than any other location.
Yes.
And Clear Creek is where all the
Schools.
schools is going, and
Right.
large populations, and possibly, I'm thinking possibly shelter
Sure.
and things like that. Is there any benefit talking about how close we are to that? Does it matter?
Say we couldn't shelter out there, I don't think, because of the water situation.
Schools.
And that's the thing, is we really
Like,
can't,
when they go to build a new school, that could be real considerable.
we really can't co-locate shelter / emergency operations
No,
center at the same
no, I don't mean
site.
to move.
No, I'm just saying,
I don't
it
mean,
needs to be a good bit of distance away, just because of the activities that take place in the operations center and the activities that take place in the shelter don't need to be in close proximity, really.
Even if you could, you wouldn't want to.
Absolutely, and you look and just think of the
And
practicality of that in a long-term disaster, where you got the folks there in the shelter, and whatever issues happen, you get a call for supplies, there's anything that, that shelter is not able to keep on those folks anymore. You don't want them to be near the nurse center, or how you're gonna coordinate and take care of that,
what,
just from a security standpoint, it would be.
what I'm thinking in that regard is you want the shelter out of the floodplain, obviously. You want it where you can access it, not get caught in one road that's flooded or whatever. You can't use a civic center or something. I thought Clear Creek would be the ideal location for a shelter.
The gymnasiums at a lot of the schools have become our ideal location for sheltering, because they do have the showering facilities there, so that they can do showers. And really, the shelter itself, although we put in the request and we say we're going to open that shelter, those are traditionally manned, supplied, and controlled by the Red Cross.
Yeah. So it's not really a connection to the EOC per se.
We are basically the coordinator and logistics and the jobber of it, so to say. But now, a warming shelter, yes, we do that. We do things like warming
Well,
shelter. But for an actual displacement shelter, people don't have anywhere to go, homes destroyed, whatever the case may be, an actual shelter operation is an American Red Cross operation.
I still think my first option would be open, my second would be possibly Piedmont. And we do need to take care of both tenants out there. Farmers.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to do the EOC, we're going to have to do that
Absolutely.
somewhere.
Absolutely.
Because I don't sit there and maintain that building there at that point. Let me ask you this, since we're in desperation mode here anyway. Yukon Fire Station is currently closed. Okay. Could it be repurposed as an EOC?
The way the building's set up, no, it really can't. The thing of it is it has to maintain the operations of the fire station to keep that ISO rating in that portion of the county. The building, if you go there and look at it, it's not really that big on the inside. The base space is really all it's big, but we have to keep that as a fire station, or else that quadrant of the county will lose our ISO rating.
So if you were building a building, what size would it be?
You know, not a whole lot different than what the footprint of the Station 3 facility is right now as far as size. Sorry, the Cherry Log Station. That footprint with a little bit different of a layout on the inside would be absolutely ideal.
What's
But
the
that's
square
for
footage?
2650.
Yeah,
It is, but we're not, and there again, we're just trying to figure off the top of our head for things like, you know, that technology going up, it's absolutely not in that fire station. We would have finishing of walls and flooring and furniture and stuff that would have to go in there that we didn't have to do in Cherry Log Fire Station. So yes, it would probably come under this number whenever it comes down to a bid. Yeah, probably so. Especially since we already have this. Yeah, exactly.
What's the footprint in that building, did you say?
So what's the
2650.
2650.
26 square foot,
Oh, right.
Square.
not dimensions.
Yeah, it's 75 by 32.
Okay. All right, so what we need to do is we need to reopen the discussion with open school, with education. And that'll kind of fit in with our earlier discussion of training out there as well.
Yeah.
Right. And then we simultaneously, we need to look at the Piedmont building. Apparently you already have firm figures on that, but we need to update that with enough to move the UGA folks out there as well.
Did we go 2 floors out there, people?
Well, all we're talking about is, the space that we're talking about is not even the entire.
Not even 1
top-
floor?
No, yeah, that's, if we were to encompass, there's more space over there for office. If we were to encompass that as well,
The whole top floor is empty, right?
yes, it is.
And
If we were to take
That's
that,
the
UGA
building
folks.
used.
I could get you a solid figure for that whole third floor.
Partial do that if you would. And
And the first floor, half the first floor.
so we'll,
I don't know more doctors.
we'll look at that as well. And then also I need to speak with the UGA folks to see if we go with the open school as a solution, how much resistance we'll get from them or from them to move out there.
We do, but I have a feeling that that's closer to the farming than the Clear Creek and other places that they would be happy.
Yeah,
Personally, but I don't know.
you know, I always think this makes sense and somebody should be doing
Yeah.
it and they go that. But, yeah.
Well, it's something to think about with them too. A lot of people don't, I'm not trying to sales pitch for them, but they do a whole lot of other stuff other than just the quality extension for agriculture. They do a lot of stuff. Yeah, a lot of training for, a lot of personal needs for folks that has nothing to do with farming,
They
that's
may
why they
not
like
want
a
to go that
centralized
far away
location.
from, they may not want to go that far just because of the population.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see how much resistance, you know, if, it may be a case of, I'm sorry folks, but, you know, this is just what we need to do. But that depends on just how much of a problem we're looking for. Also, we need to find out what the internet capability is out there if we don't already know.
At Oakland?
At Oakland.
My understanding was that was, they might clear out their ETC.
Probably so, I mean, you would think, but we just need to check it
I
out.
asked at the Piedmont location, and she believes it's
Oh, I'm
fine,
sure it is.
which is better than what we have, I believe, in Providence.
All right, so we got a number of things we need to check on there. What I would suggest is for planning purposes at this point, that we put $32,000 into the M&O budget. That would cover either a Oakland or Piedmont solution, and we could get about $600,000 for them.
Well, we don't have a choice.
Yes.
So that said, can we roll down to the next item?
Yes,
Come in.
we're ready to do that.
I notwithstanding anything that Chief has to add.
Actually, we did kind of, what is their schedule?
I don't see a 2019 number per year on that mobile
We
community.
need to move pretty
I
quickly.
see a different
because we're
year on
running
that
out.
line item, but
Sorry.
I said, I see a different year number on that second line item.
Yeah, I think we ought to get a 2020 mobile command unit.
I think so too.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know.
Again, going back into the mobile command unit, since I've been here for the past 2.5 months, we've worked upwards of 5 to 6 search and rescue situations alone, where we've needed to use these mobile command unit functions, and we've had to use the trailerable style unit, which we've used and we've made do with what we've had. But this mobile command unit wouldn't be just a fire department EMA type function. The functionality would be used across the county organizations with the sheriff's department, any of your Apple Festival, any of your large festivals in order to organize events. Your mobile command unit would be available for any of the entities to be out there and to be used for a unified command post. So it's a multi-purpose unit.
I'll give you a proposal, my thought. If you get the cities to pay half of it, it might be considered.
I'm not gonna
I spent
call it
25 years in the
anything.
military, but I was not a salesman, sir.
I hear you.
Well, my only call on that one is, that, you know.
It's not gonna happen, pretty good, I don't think.
And to me, if that was something we would have done, it'd been something kind of like what we've done with the engine that we bought,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah,
over
yeah.
a period
That's
of
what
however
I'm
many
thinking.
years.
that's what I'm thinking too.
But we have to be careful with that, because every time we do that, we're adding to our debt for an extra 10 years.
That you don't know what the revenue will be. Understood.
I think something like that should be shared, even though military has their own fire department, police department, but I think that command unit is a shared asset for cities and county. That's my feeling.
Well,
Any grants for that sort of thing? Grants nowadays, when it comes to vehicles, it's very, very far and few between. We just haven't seen anything that would help us on those connected.
well, I think we've got our questions answered on this. Obviously, we've got to consider how we're going to do all this.
But I appreciate your comments, statement there, I understand.
And there's homework to be done. But are y'all good with the idea of going ahead and putting in 32,000 in the
I think we should,
for one of those two scenarios for the EMA?
Did you say y'all, or you referring to these guys or us? I'm good with it.
I'm good with that, Charlie,
Okay. So,
until I'm good with that.
I mean, that'll cover either of the two.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the Piedmont option, if you want to move the extension service in there, I think that is going to go for what we're talking about.
Add a little more.
Yeah.
We're probably talking close to 50 then total.
Well, let's go ahead and put in the 32 for now and see what we figure out. We'll have that figure back before we do the final budget.
Yeah, we should.
I'll text you right now. We got to do something with extension anyway.
Y'all don't make it easier.
I'm sorry. I really am. Look, the whole time I sit down and I feel these things out, every time we write one of those numbers, it's like a cringe. Don't get me wrong. I realize those numbers are big, but unfortunately, the things that we do, once you tie emergency management, fire, or anything public safety to it, there's nothing cheap in our world. And it's unfortunate. Thank y'all so much.
Appreciate it.
Every time.